Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I have a very good tutorial for you guys. Something I do often, but not as much as my baby lights or highlights, but it's something I really like, and using this technique is great because I'm not great at balayage. It's not my specialty. It's not a technique I like. So if you're looking for a foliage or, you know, a balayage kind of a look, even though balayage isn't a look, and I go over this all the time, it's a technique. This is for the people who like those rooted looks, lived-in looks, low maintenance, and this is a way to get it while using foil work and getting the same exact kind of result, but doing it in foils, getting better lift using regular lightener. So today I'm going to use my Teasy light technique and show you guys how to take somebody from overlapped black box dye for 15 years to a beautiful, nice lived-in first session to get her to start transitioning into a beautiful lived-in foliage that's caramel. I don't think we're going to get her goal today at all. I was honest, I always am. Under promise, always over deliver is what I live by in this industry, and that's something you have to do. So for her today, and for anybody when I'm dealing with overlap box dye or permanent color, sometimes I don't always run to the baby light technique, because sometimes if you go in and do a million foils, you don't know how it's going to lift, how uneven it's going to be, and all those years of overlapping are going to have different levels, and usually what happens is you get like a hot root kind of look. So sometimes baby lights aren't the answer. You're going to expose too much pigment. So I like to go in with my Teasy light technique because you still leave bigger subsections. It's nice and dimensional, but it's still easy to cover and blend, as opposed to having a million foils where it's all lifted. So if you want to see how I do this and how I like to tackle overlapped box dye color correction for the first session, then keep watching. If you want to watch part 2 on when I like to go and start taking it into baby lights, let me know down below and we'll shoot part 2. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I have something that I normally don't do most of the time, but today I'm going to bring it to you guys to show you how I tackle a situation like this. This is my client Desiree. This is her first session with me, absolutely first session. Never did her hair once before. I actually go and do her mother's hair, so her mother told her about me. She's a box dye user. Unfortunately, she's been box dyeing her hair for the better half of 15 to 20 years. So all that build up, what do you do? What way do you go as a colorist? Well, in a situation like this, whether it's something like black box dye, overlap permanent black color, red color, I usually will go in with something this serious and give 2 options. So one option is to do an all-day real true color correction where I actually apply a color remover, let that do a lot of the heavy lifting, then follow it by giving her a nice shampoo, then doing a bleach wash, another shampoo, rough drying her, and then going in and doing a full foil, doing the dropouts with a color in between, with a paint between, and then if I needed to do another round of foiling or so on. That's a whole day, 10, 12, 18 hours, give or take, if not into the next day. And the thing is, it's up to the client. I feel comfortable if somebody's hair could handle it to do this, but this is something that's going to cost a lot of money. I used to charge by the hour. I no longer do that. Now I charge for every individual thing. This will run them between, in her situation, probably between $800 and $2,000. I'm just giving an estimate that's rough. Don't bite my head off. But anyway, there's always a second option, which is doing foiling and actually doing it over sessions. And that's what most clients do. Number one, whether it's a budget reason or their hair reason and they're worried about it. I like doing this, even though it's less money. Over time, it ends up being around the same, because you get to actually have your client get used to the transition period. So they're not going from black to white blonde in one day. I've had so many clients that are virgin or whatever the case may be, and we get them to their goal in one sitting, and the next day they call and say they want to go darker. It's always a shell shock. So that's the only best thing about color corrections, is that you go through a period of transitioning and you have multiple different colors till you get to your goal. Sometimes midway through, a client will call me and say, you know what, I like this color. Let's just, you know, not even go to the goal and just stay where we're at. Anyway, so it's better and safer to do it this way and do session by session. And today is a way I like to go in when I'm facing, you know, a color correction that has somebody with years and years and years of overlap black box dye or overlapped permanent color. This is the way I like to tackle it. If we're not doing a color remover or a true color correction, I go in with something called a Teasy light foliage. So, why am I not going in and packing a million foils of baby lights in her head? And I have done this in certain situations, but most of the time, if it's serious like this, I don't. I go in and do Teasy lights for a couple of reasons. Number one, it helps me get an idea of how her hair is going to lift without ripping up too much of that underlying pigment. Most chances are that she's going to end up lifting really orange and red. Orange if we're lucky. But yeah, guys, it's serious when you're trying to remove permanent color in general, but box dye overlap for 15 years, another story. We'll be lucky if our hair even lifts. So I don't want to go in and do a million foils and have all this underlying pigment of red and maroon and orange or whatever the heck her hair is going to lift to. So it's easier to go in and do Teasy lights, which are more dimensional. As you can see, when I take my section, I leave a subsection. It's not back to back like my typical baby lights 99% of the time are. And this is going to give us a little wiggle room so that we can combat the warmth and keep it nice and dimensional and still have an idea of how it's going to lift. And it also gives a great canvas at a starting point for the next session, which usually is a baby light. In this case, she wants to keep doing Teasy lights because she likes that look and wants a foliage. So you guys know by watching my videos by now, at this point, an OG supporter if you are, that I always like going in after I do my foil work and do a paint between with permanent color, or if I'm doing a root smudge kind of look, I'll always go back in and do a paint between because then at the bowl it makes it look prominent when I do the root smudge. But with this situation, it's Teasy lights, I'm teasing the hair back, it's gonna get all messy, and her biggest thing is my gray needs to be covered. So I make sure that I'm working up. As I do each section, I'm applying the permanent color before I go in and do the Teasy lights. That way I can guarantee it'll be covered very, very well. I'm even doing it here in the bang box area. And also, if you've been watching me for a while, I don't do many Teasy light videos, but the ones I do have, you guys know I love going in, and even if I'm doing Teasy lights, I like to do hairline foiling work that is always baby lights. With her, obviously, she's darker than a level 6. You guys know my rule. I don't do slicing on anybody darker than a level 6. But in this situation, she almost had like a widow's peak. And instead of going off of the side on a slant of each one, I just went right down the middle and I started with that slice directly across. Not that it's going to do much. You guys will see when she's done processing of what we get when it lifts. But I knew what to expect and I just rolled with it. As a rule of thumb in my book that you guys can go by as well is never do a traditional highlight stitch or a chunky highlight or anything like that in hairline areas because you're gonna look like you have spots. Like a part here will be colored, this part will be dark. Color, dark, big chunks. You don't want that. You want it to be a nice, natural looking hairline. Even if you like chunky highlights and that's your thing, everybody loves to be bright around the face and have a nice blended area in the front. So I'm going in and doing really tight baby lights, and you'll notice too as I'm going further up into the bang box, I start actually feathering my brush up and not taking the lightener all the way to the root area, because I'm going to start transitioning those foils so eventually it blends from a very nice, really high money piece, and it starts going back further and further, breaking it up, and it ends up being very blended back into the rest of the Teasy lights. I hope that makes sense, but just keep continuing to watch what I'm doing and you'll get what I mean. In case you're wondering why, when I apply my bleach on top of the already permanent color in the root area and the foil, it is turning a funny pink color, it is because that is normal. The two chemicals are meeting together and nothing bad is going to happen. As you see it happen again right here, that just means there's going to be a beautiful blend. I'm not a big fan of ever applying a permanent color down and then actually putting the bleach on top, because no matter what, it comes out very, very warm and it will never lift non-warm. But in this situation, we're already going through black box dye. I knew it wasn't a big deal. We were still gonna have a lot of warmth to deal with. So I just went along and did it this way. But normally I would have went in, did all my foil work and had an assistant or myself do the paint between afterwards. To me, I feel like it's cleaner and it's just way more blended when you do the paint between. So normally when I do a traditional stitch, my regular highlight is probably about 5 or 6 of a stitch weave, and that is my normal. when I want more dimension and I want it to be more, you know, beautiful and just beautiful pops of color. And that's what I'll normally do, and I'll never do a stitch bigger than that. You might notice today I am doing like 3-4 stitch weaves, and that is because I want, and I'll never usually do this, guys. If you know me or you're a client, you know I do not do this. But with her, I wanted to get in there and get almost like ribbons of color to make it more ribbon filled, because I know she wanted to see a difference. And I already knew it wasn't gonna lift that well, and we're gonna have to tone it down a lot to combat that red orange. So I wanted to make sure there was pieces that she would actually see pop, and you'll see what I mean towards the end when you guys see the final results. But I will never do a stitch this big ever. So if you were thinking about that, then you were right. And this is the only time I'm doing something like this, and it's right here in this video today. So she processed for about 1 hour and 20 minutes. You guys, don't eat me alive. Her hair's still on her head. She was not gonna budge, and this is exactly what I was scared of. And now you all, if you're not a hairdresser, see what box dye, permanent black color in general, lifts like after an hour and a half total processing once I finished foiling. So I've had bleach on her hair probably 4 hours that day. And it lifted to what I expected. I'm not mad at it. No hair came out on the brush at all whatsoever. Now it's time to tone. So her permanent coverage went well. She has no gray poking through. Everything covered extremely well. So now I'm gonna section off her face frame, what little face frame we have or what we'll salvage today, because I think I'm gonna tone a lot of that down because it did lift really, really red. So for my root smudge formula, I've decided to go with my typical N's. So I'm gonna be using 3N. You guys know I love a good NA, so I'm gonna add a little bit of 4NA in there. They only have a 4NA through a 10NA. So I'm adding a little bit of that 4NA in there. And then I'm gonna do something I normally do not do, and I'm going to add something different. And it's not a warm color, it's 2M. So I have 2M, 3N, 4NA, a third of each in this formula, and this is what I'm going to be using the root smudge. So I'm going in and I'm doing a root smudge, bringing it down 3 inches or more. The hairline is all sectioned off already, and usually you guys know I do the hairline afterwards, and I'll go in and just slightly tap it. That's when I'm doing a shadow everywhere else. When I'm doing a smudge, which is rare because that's when I'm doing more of a teasy light or something like that. And as I said, when I do a smudge, I always do a paint between the foils while the foils are in the hair processing, because it makes it more prominent when we smudge it and it all comes together at the end. So what I'm doing right now is going in and I'm smudging it down about 3 inches. And then of course, around the hairline, when I do smudges, I like to shadow the hairline. So it's basically like one step ahead. When I do a shadow everywhere else, I do a tap around the hairline. And when I smudge, I do a shadow around the hairline. Hope that makes sense, you guys. She lifted really red, but I still want to have pop around the face. So we will bring that down, and I'll show you when we get there. So if you're not a hairdresser and you just love watching hair videos and find them relaxing, you're probably wondering why I am going in and doing a smudge on top of the highlights that we just lifted for an hour and a half, 4 hours altogether. And you're probably confused on why I'm doing that and not really understanding what the shadowing process entails, since I already covered her roots earlier with a permanent color. The reason I'm going in and smudging is for where all those highlights begin. It's going to blend everything seamlessly down and help give us more of a prominent root look. This isn't going to cover them completely because it's a translucent demi-permanent, but you will see parts of it coming through, but that's what makes it so beautiful. It's a see-through nice smudge, and I can't wait for you guys to see it at the end. Now I'm going to just go around the hairline and smudge her as well. I'm using a smaller brush, my favorite Goldwell mini brush, and that's because I'm only going to be shadowing her about an inch, and I don't want to bring it all the way down, and that big brush would have been too overbearing. So make sure you're always aware of what things you're using during different things that you're doing as a hairdresser. So for her final all over color, I'm using shade EQ once again. I'm actually gonna apply it in a bowl and brush because we're gonna let this sit as if it was a real all over color for about 15 to 20 minutes. And I mixed 8 colors. You guys ready for the formula? 5N, 6GN, 6VB, 6T, 6GB, 6N, 7M, 7NB. I applied it all over the hair. If you're wondering, yes, I did have Olaplex number 2 on the mids and ends while I did the root color, so there was no splotchiness, but I am leaving that on as I apply this color all over. It will slow it down a little bit, but it's basically gonna kick its way through it. Never be scared to put a toner on top of Olaplex number 2. All right, guys, so as you can see, it looks scary and really dark, but we finally put the toner on. My camera definitely cut out, so I don't know if it cut out during the mixing of the toner, but if so, the toner's on the screen. You guys know I always put it there. We're gonna let her sit for 15 to 20 minutes and then rinse, condition, and then we're going to finish her off with a nice blowout and cut. This is why I like doing a Teasy light when I'm really doing a true color correction, black box dye, overlap permanent color of any kind, because you don't want to expose with a full baby light so much of this pigment. This gives you a perfect dimensional, you know, something you can control and tone out. And then the next session you do a baby light, and this first Teasy light gives a great starting canvas. So we'll see what we get, but I did 5, 6s, and 7s. She's a natural like 2, so hopefully we'll see some dimension. And I told her it will lighten up as time goes on as well. So we're gonna let her process for the 15 minutes, and I'll be back to show you what we're left with. All right, guys, there you have it. Look how beautiful this color is after a full Teasy light on overlap black box dye. I can't get it through my head. 14, 15 years of overlapping black box dye, and in one session, this is what we're left with. All 8 of those toners worked beautifully with the 3 toners on the root smudge. Everything came together great. Great products equals great hair. I love you all so very much. Let me know down below what you want to see in the future, and I'll see you in the next one. As always, guys, so long for now.